Today we are taking a leaf out of the book of childhood, seeing what kids can teach us about how to be happy. So I am going to share some stories from my own childhood as well as some things that I have learned from my daughter about how to make your days a little bit brighter. And some of them involve blanket forts. Let's go! Hi guys, it's Laura from How to Get Your Shit Together, and I help busy people cut the crap and get back to happy. Now that term that I use, getting back to happy, it's not just about rediscovering happiness, but it's also about getting back to basics, about finding joy in the small things. Now, I grew up in the 80s, a simpler time. You got things for your birthday and Christmas, and for the occasional bribe so that you would keep going to your swimming lessons every week, even though you had all the swimming ability of a brick. For me, it was a Rainbow comic. Who remembers Rainbow? The point being, back then, treats and toys were special. You generally only got them twice a year, if you were lucky, so you really looked forward to them. You savoured them. And apart from the fact that things were built to last back then, you also had to make them last, because it was probably going to be a year before you got another few little bits of Lego. For my daughter, though, she expects a new toy every time we go grocery shopping, because there is an aisle of toys there. Now, she doesn't get one, well, not from me anyway, but the expectation is still there, because for the most part, stuff isn't special anymore. When it is so readily available, when you can indulge in it on a very regular basis, it's no longer a treat. It's no longer something to look forward to. It's just part of everyday life. But there's still hope. When I was a kid, yes, I had a selection of toys, but I always had a favourite. And obviously that favourite changed over time, but I always had something that stood out for me. My first stuffed animal, my little Tomy computer, certain books. Shoutouts to my mother for hanging on to some of it. And then I got older and it was posters all over my walls, but only of the very best. I was not wasting space on bands and boys that I did not care a great deal about. And again, over time, they changed from like the Backstreet Boys to Nirvana, though I still love both. And now, as an adult, I am a huge believer in curating your life, because I think that as we grow older, stuff just doesn't mean as much to us anymore. It doesn't stand out. And it's not necessarily about having less, though obviously I do believe that is hugely beneficial, but it's about figuring out your favourites. You might have a closet full of clothes, but you probably wear pretty much the same thing over and over again. You gravitate towards the same things, but maybe you don't take the time to truly appreciate them. Now, my daughter has a lot of toys, and like I said, stuff doesn't mean as much to her, but Daddy Bunny is incredibly special, and he goes everywhere with her except to school. But he goes to bed with her, he eats breakfast with her, he plays with her, watches TV with her, he goes to the pool with her, he goes shopping with her. And yes, she likes her other toys, but Daddy Bunny is the star of the show. Daddy Bunny is irreplaceable, because kids, even today, have some appreciation for the exceptional. And I definitely do not mean that in objective terms. You know, something doesn't have to have a lot of bells and whistles to be important to you. It doesn't have to be this really complicated thing. It doesn't have to be shiny and new. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to have all these fancy features. It doesn't even have to be expensive. It's about a feeling. Buzz Lightyear might have, all the cool buttons and the wings and the lights and the lasers and the fancy spacesuit. But Woody, we don't have a Woody, so you're just gonna have to use your imagination here. Woody with just, the hat and the pull string, he was still the number one. What is the star of the show for you? What are the things that you truly cherish? What is your Daddy Bunny? Finding and appreciating your favorites will go a long way to adding that little bit of extra sparkle into your life. Another thing that kids have and tend to gravitate towards is some kind of den. I'm sure you had one too, some little hidey hole, maybe a tree house or a blanket or pillow fort. Even if it was just climbing under the covers with a torch and your favourite toys. You had a place to retreat to, hopefully a nice, happy, safe space. My granddad was a carpenter and he made various different things for us, and one of the things he made for me was this great big doll's house. I wish I had a photo of it. Now remember, this was the 80s. In Ireland, everyone was poor. These sorts of things only existed on TV, so I was ecstatic. It was actually so big and I was so small that I could climb right into it. And then I grew up and got a swing set. Another extravagance, but that was my place to sit and swing and think about the world. Until one day I was doing Supermans and the swing slipped out from underneath me and I crash landed right on my stomach. Not just the wind out of me, but a huge amount of bravado too. I became extra cautious from then on. Isn't it strange how you can trace certain aspects of your personality right back to a single specific incident in your childhood? But anyway, then when I was older, I built this kind of treehouse type thing with my friends, and that was the new thing for me. But there was always some form of space. It is time to recreate that by building yourself a cozy little nook. Regardless of your physical environment or your personal circumstances, I think we all have aspects of our home that we're not entirely happy with. Maybe there are dirty dishes in the sink, maybe there are piles of laundry in the hamper or on the floor. Can you tell I'm speaking from personal experience? We have amassed a lifetime of stuff, so it can be hard to feel completely comfortable. You know, homes used to be sanctuaries, but these days they can sometimes feel more like storage units. So carve out a little space that's just for you. Maybe a particularly comfortable armchair, maybe a beanbag in the corner, a window seat, whatever. One little nook that you can cozy up in. And then set about making it your go-to spot. Put some books there, or newspapers, magazines, whatever your reading material of choice is. You know, a lamp, some fluffy socks, a nice comfortable cushion, a nice warm throw, snacks, very important. Make it a space that you can retreat to and feel completely comfortable and relaxed and happy in. Your own little cocoon, your grown-up den. And don't think you're too old for a blanket fort, because never. And remember when you were a kid and you got so engrossed in things. Even the simplest things like colouring could make hours fly by and require the deepest focus and concentration. At that moment in time, it was your singular mission to finish that fairy princess or that field of flowers. Or you'd make up a little adventure and off you'd go out into the back garden, and that was you set for the entire afternoon. I used to go traipsing across the fields for hours, like the full day with my friends, and you'd only come back at dinner time. And I don't even know how we knew it was dinner time because none of us had watches. Nowadays, I don't even let my daughter play like right outside without constant supervision and a countdown to when it is time to come in. 10 more minutes. But try to find a hobby or a pastime or just something that you can feel completely engaged in, something that will completely engross you, completely involve you. The older I get, the more that I notice that my concentration is starting to slip. It's terrible. It is so hard for me to focus on pretty much anything for a prolonged period of time. Even reading, which I love and I used to lose myself in for hours as a kid, but nowadays I can barely get through a few pages without my mind wandering or being distracted by something. There are so many pulls on our attention these days that it's hard not to get distracted. We have lost that ability to make our own fun because there is a whole world in here just waiting to suck us in. It's the modern day it. You know, it's the seemingly funny entertainer that is just waiting to suck you down into the sewers, steal your soul. If that movie were ever remade again, with a like 21st century digital twist. Pennywise would be Pinterest. Though I really wish they would stop remaking classics. If they touch Labyrinth, I'm out. Anyway, find or rediscover something that you love to do and then make time for it. If you can do it for long stretches of time, all the better, because then you can get completely engrossed in it. And don't worry, if that doesn't come naturally to you, over time, with practice, it will happen. And look, these long stretches of time, being engrossed in something, I'm not talking about TV or social media. I'm talking about something that is truly, uniquely, wonderfully, eye-sparklingly fun. Remember fun? I think I saw it on the side of a milk carton once. Recapture some of that magic from before you had responsibilities. I know it's a little harder when you have bills to pay and floors to mop and creepy clowns to defeat, but the rewards will be worth it. I remember one evening a few years back, there was a power cut and I did something that I have not done since I was a teenager. I lay down and with the little bit of battery that I had left, I just listened to music, a whole album from beginning to end. I hadn't felt that peaceful in a long time. But when you make that special space in your home, with your cozy little nook, and that special place in your mind and your schedule for a hobby or pastime, and that special place in your heart for those treasured possessions, you will start to relive a little bit of that childhood magic and get back to happy. If you are ready to indulge in a little bit more self-care and self-love, particularly if life is a little bit hectic, then click here to watch this video. And until then, Cora Mila Mahagwith. Agus begin me shifte galua. Slán.